went ahead and got all this spot welded back. I went ahead and cleaned it all up, and I'm trying to get rid of the burr on the edge. I don't want to cut my hand, because when we had the fender on there, I don't know if you saw what was going on, but this edge right here was literally hitting the rocker panel, making the fender stick out. So I went ahead and fixed that. I went ahead and welded this brace on, and then I went ahead and welded the fender well itself back together. And you can see right here what we're talking about. This is where the exact factory hole was, at exactly where it was. This piece was overlapping, and then I cut that off. I still got to clean this up a little bit. We're not going to do that until after it's on the vehicle. But we did get the factory hole, so everything will line up perfect. Now, if you notice, I still got my strap exactly where it was. I didn't move it anywhere. We're going to go ahead and bolt the fender back on the vehicle again and test fit it one more time.
Welcome to D.I.Y. Automotive School with my friend Pete and Minnie, the body shop girl. It's everything you need to know about cars and more.
And then I want to show you that speed nut that we had to replace. So I went ahead and bought 4 of them, replaced all 4 of them with brand new ones. Alright, so now that we have our fender lined up at the top, we're going to go ahead and see what happens down here. And you can see now that I trimmed this down where it was hitting, we can get that fender a lot closer to where it needs to be. So I went ahead and replaced the speed nuts down here on the bottom. I got some body shims right here that we're going to put on there. And then we're going to try to get this to line up where it has a gap. Remember now, these aftermarket parts suck. I'm just letting you know. And I can already see that this gap is a little bigger than at the top. So here's some body shims. We're going to go ahead and see if we can put these in here. And I don't know if these are going to fit or not. So we're going to have to get some different ones. But when we raise this up, that's where we want it, right there. Okay, before we tighten the fender down, we want to get our body shims out. And this is a little tech tip from my friend Pete. Go over to Harbor Freight, and you can buy a whole pack of these things for pennies on the dollar. Awesome situation. So we're going to go ahead and put some shims in this. Let me see if I can get that in there. Okay. Now, one thing you got to remember, we don't have an inner fender well on this, so we don't have anything to hold the fender back to the proper position it needs to be. But this is going to give us an idea of exactly what's going on. And before we go any further, I want to go ahead and get the top of the fender bolted down where it's supposed to be, and then we'll be able to line the bottom up better. So we got our fender lined up right here, but like again, we don't have our fender well in, and if we had our fender well in, that would actually bring the fender where it was supposed to be. Let's go ahead and tighten this up and see what happens. Just like that. Okay, so what we found out is the top has to come in more. And another thing we found out is we might have to take that shim out. Either we're going to have to take a shim out here or add one down there. We're going to go ahead and take these shims out, and then I'm only going to put one in now. You see, this is the kind of action that you have when you're working on these cars. I'm going to go ahead, since the fender's a little bit closer now, and we might have to go ahead and take this shim out. Let's see what happens when we do. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take all the shims out now. It looks like it's going to push it down where we want it. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten this, bring it closer, and get that gap where we want it. And that's fixing up the gap for us right there. Go ahead and tighten this up. And you can see right there the gap is actually even all the way. We're still going to have to do some body work. We still got to weld this on. This is not welded on. But the gap looks really nice. It's kind of awkward and wacom-sacky because we're looking at 3 different colors. But this is what I want you to look at right here. And I don't have any shims up here anymore. So that's telling me that we need to put more shims on the bottom to pull the fender down. Now, another thing I noticed is this body line is just a little bit high. I don't know if you can see that. Here's the line right here, but this line here is up about right here. So I'm going to go ahead and keep messing with this. We're going to get it welded on. I think we're pretty much where we need to be on that action. We're going to have to do some hammer and doweling. Once we get it on there, we'll have to do some body work and get it all fit in. But other than that, I think we're there. I think we are there, and it's ready for final weld job, fitment, and body work. Alright, so we went ahead and replaced the fender bottom on this. Remember, we had to replace that brace as well. But we still got an issue right here. Do you see how skinny it is right here? Do you see this nice thin line we got? Now watch when we get down here. Do you see how fat that is? Look how fat it is. And kind of out of proportion. Do you see that? So what we got is right here, there's a dip in the fender. But when we put it up on the door, this dip does not match the door itself. So we got to put this fender back on the car. We're going to shim it up properly. We're going to get it all evened out, stevened out, exactly like it's supposed to be. And then we'll start doing our body work. But it went on nice. I like it. We came over here. We lined our mounting hole up. That's all in place. And we're ready to mount it on the car and do our body work. Alright, if we look at the bottom of that fender, I just got done replacing the rotted, rusted piece that was on there, the original piece, and we went ahead and replaced it with a brand new aftermarket fender bottom. So there's the old fender bottom that we cut out and replaced right there, and you can see it was pretty rotted out. This is the brace over here that we had to replace inside. So the only way to replace these things, of course, naturally, you have to buy an aftermarket fender bottom, and they're made in Taiwan. You're not going to get a factory fender bottom, depending on who you buy them from, what the manufacturer is. There's only 2 or 3 manufacturers that make these things, but this is what you get. You got to cut out what you need, and then you weld it on. So this has body contours that are similar to the original fender, but not exactly perfect. This gap right here is not going to be flawlessly perfect when you put it on the fender, and that's about what we're going to show you right there, is how to fix a gap on a fender door. See that? We got the fender in the door there. We're going to fix that gap. If you look at it, it looks nice at the bottom, nice at the top, but right there in the center, it's too wide. I'm going to show you how to fix that. It's very easy and very simple, and it only takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of time, and a little bit of welding. So to give you the full visual effect of what's going on here, I got a paint stick, and we're going to go ahead and cut that off so we can run it down the fender. Okay, and if you look at the paint stick, you can see it fits in here really nice, but when we get down here, you can see how big the gap is, and then it starts fitting good again down here. This is where we're messed up right there. Do you see that big gap? So what we're going to do, we're going to get some metal extrusion, some round stock, and we are going to weld a piece on here to fill that in, and then we'll grind it down to match. So depending on how wide the gap is going to tell you how thick you need your round stock. This is approximately an 1/8 inch round stock, and it comes in all different sizes and thicknesses, but this is the thinnest one I got, so we're going to have to go with that. Now I've already cut a piece off. You can see right here, we've already cut that off. So now what we're going to do, we are going to go ahead and mold it to the fender, and then we're going to spot weld that on there. We'll take the fender off, we'll grind it down, and it should have a perfect gap that we need. And then here's an example of thicknesses. You can see the difference between this one and this one. This is actually the one that I started out with. I went ahead and bent it to the contour of the fender itself, but when I stuck it in here, all right, it seemed like it was just a little too thick. It was a little too thick, and to get this to where it would flare out and work properly, that would have been a thick piece of metal to use. So we're going to go down to this one, and you can see we're going to have to go ahead and bend it just a little bit. So let's go over to our vise. I'll show you how to do that. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and mark it off where we need to put the bend. Right here. And then we'll go ahead and bend that to the contour we need. And if we look down at our vise here, you can see I'm missing my jaws. So it makes it really easy for me to bend this. And we're not going to do a big bend. We're just going to lightly, just like that. We don't even really need to bend it that heavy. All we're trying to do is get to the contour of the fender that we need. Go ahead and do this right here on this side. We don't want to do it too much. We just want that contour that we need. And you can see that's a little too much on that curve, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and straighten one of them corners out. I'm going to take the hammer, I'm going to go down on the ground, and I'm going to pound it and straighten it out just a little bit to get rid of that curve. So if you look right here, our curve's going to start there, and then it's going to end up in here somewhere. We're going to go ahead and cut a little bit more of this off, and then we're going to spot weld it on there. Okay, so that's where we want it right there. This is where we want it right here, just like that. So I'm going to spot weld that on there, and then once I get this welded on, Once I get this tack welded on there, then we'll take the fender off and then we'll get it all molded where we need it. And it goes up to approximately right here. And then we're going to cut the excess off that we don't need. And now we can go ahead and remove the fender and then start contouring it to where we want it. Now that we got our piece spot welded in place where we want it, we can go ahead and weld it up. I'm going to cut this weld off and I'm going to cut this weld off and I'm going to tuck that up under the fender. And now, it's basically just a matter of grinding that down and getting the contour that we need to make it the right thickness or width. And if you look real close right there, you can see where we filled that in with using our steel rod. So now we'll go ahead and fit the fender back on the vehicle and see what it looks like. So if we look at the gap now that the fender is installed on the vehicle, you can see the gap is pretty damn close to where we want it. For what we just did by adding that metal into the fender, I think it cleaned up the gap good enough where it's going to be just fine and it'll look great. Now, one more way to fix a repair like that is you can literally take your welder and then you can build up the edge of it with beads. You can build up the edge, just keep spot and welding it until it gets thicker and thicker, and then grind it down. But when you come across a very big gap like we had, it's better to take some round stock, add it to it, and do the job right. This is Pete, my friend Pete, your friend Pete, fixing this car and getting on the other fender because we got to do the same thing to the other side. Now that the bodywork is done on both fenders, you can see there was a high spot right here for some reason. I don't know what was going on, but what I will do, I will remove this fender off of the vehicle. We'll get it on the fender stand and we'll get them primed. Now, before we paint these, we're not done. I'm going to have Sandblast or Steve sandblast all the green paint off of here and then on the inside of the fender as well. That's going to save us a lot of time and agony of sanding that, and it's going to look more professional to be a concourse restoration style paint job than just a scuff and paint. And we'll go ahead and have them do the same thing on this. And here's a good reason why. If you look real close, you can see surface rust building up on all of it. And I think I'll go ahead and have them spot blast the inside of the fender where all the thick rust is to get rid of all the nasty dirt and grime. And then what we'll do on the inside of the fender when we get them back is we will go ahead and pour 15 them for the owner to make them rust proof up in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania. And here's our flange weld. I'll go ahead and seam seal that before we paint it, and it'll all look really, really nice. So the next thing that we got to do to tackle this job and finish it out for final prime is we got to fix this rust. There's a little spot right there. I think we have some over in that corner as well. And then both the back corners on the rear window have rust. So we're going to go ahead and knock that out next. Once that's done, then we can go ahead and prep this car up and put it into final prime, ready for forest green metallic paint. Big job, people. But it seems like that's all the jobs I do are big giant jobs. I never get the easy ones, the in and outs. It's always the major, extreme job that takes more than a week to do. But then on the other hand, this isn't a scuff and paint and body shop like Earl Shives or some of them clown acts you see on TikTok either. So there you go.
Thanks for watching D.I.Y. Automotive School. Classes don't stop till you know everything.